Good morning and welcome to Morning Brew on Labour Social. I'm Graham Hughes. It is the 16th of October 2023, Monday the 16th of October, actually. Happy Monday. I've discovered how to make this go white. So if that's easier to read, great. If it's not, I'll turn it back to black. Let me know in the chat. So a lot of stuff's happened over the weekend, which I'll get into I'll get into straight away. So first of all, we had a vote in Australia called the Vote for the Voice. It was a referendum in order to start an advisory council of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who would literally advise the government on matters concerning Aboriginal people or First Nation people. This didn't go down well with the racists in Australia, as you can possibly imagine, because they were like, oh, but hang on, why would you allow people who are Aboriginal to have a say on matters that only affect Aboriginal people? That's not fair. Okay. Do they have any kind of powers that mean that what they want will automatically come to fruition? No. It's just it's a suggestion. It's a suggestion council. It's an advisory council. Oh no, we don't want that. We don't want that. And as very predictably, the right-wing ghouls of the Australian Liberal Party, who are the Conservative Party, but they call themselves Liberals, which is hilarious because they're anything but, and the Murdoch Press and all the other usual scumbags came out the woodwork to say, no, you don't want to give Aboriginal people any power whatsoever. Let's continue to subjugate them for another 200 years. And as a result, the referendum came out at about 60-40 in favour of keeping the status quo. Now, the reason why they were trying to do this through a referendum rather than just a government bill is that they said, well, if we try and do it through a government bill, if Labour in Australia bring it in via a government bill, then we'll when the Liberals, the Conservatives, get in next time, they'll just backheel it. So we need to have this enshrined in the Constitution so that the Liberals can't just get rid of it as soon as they get into power, which they would do. And it's one of those things. I left Australia in 2012 and for the last time, and I could have stayed. I could have stayed there. I could have settled down. I had a girlfriend there. We had a house. She had a house that we were renting. And I could have lived in Australia. And there were a few reasons why I didn't. And one of them, not all of it, but one of them was the intense amount of casual racism I experienced in Australia. It wasn't very nice. It was like every time you'd have a couple of drinks with someone, they'll start going off on one about how much they hate Aboriginals. And it was really weird. It was just like, you know, if you're in a pub and then someone starts going off on one about the French and you're like, well, what's your problem, mate? It's a bit weird. It's a bit obsessive. Or also goes on about the Scottish. Oh, Scottish people, they never support England in a footy match. And I'm like, yeah, the first international was literally Scotland versus England. Why would they support it? I'm not going to support Manchester United just because they're a British team. I'm just not, you know, if they're playing Real Madrid, I'm going to support Real Madrid. I just am. That's just sorry. But yeah, those kind of people who kind of fixate on one particular group of people to demonize when they've had a couple of drinks inside them. I found this a lot in Australia. And I also found the fact that people were in the UK, they'll say, I'm not a racist, but because they know in the back of the little lizard minds that being a racist is a bad thing. That's a bad thing. Don't be racist. That's awful. It's not polite. It's not nice. It's not nice. You want to be nice? Yeah, everyone wants to be nice. Everyone wants to be loved. Okay, don't be racist. So I'm not a racist, but, and then I'll say something racist, because they are actually racist. And there's lots of racists in the UK, which I'll come on to in a moment. But in Australia, we had, I had an experience. I'll just tell you this. I was at a cricket match with my friend on Boxing Day, and he was from Liverpool as well. He'd come over to Australia to visit. And for a treat, he was a big cricket fan. We went to the Boxing Day match, and it was India versus Australia. And we sat down and we're having a couple of drinks, as you do at the cricket. And the people in front of us turned around and they made this really horrible race. They said, "Oh, where are you from? England." "Oh, right, okay." Blah blah blah. And then they said, they said, "Have you seen much of Australia?" I said, "Well, I've been living here the last few months, and also I've been here quite a lot, and I've driven all over the place. I've driven over to the Nullarbor, to Perth, and I've driven up the Red Centre up to Darwin and all the way around the East Coast." And he said, "Oh, did you see any?" They had a name. It was, I'm not going to repeat it, but it was like a name that they decided to create that they thought was hilarious. And I said, "Well, I don't know what are you talking about." He said, "Oh, that's the noise that they make when you hit an Aboriginal with your car." And I was just like, "What?" And I remember my mate looking at me going, "Should we get another drink?" And we both had like full pints, plastic cups. We're like, "Yeah, let's get another drink." So we walked off to literally the other side of the MCG. This massive stadium. It's like a 60,000 seater stadium, maybe even bigger. And we sit down again and we're watching the cricket. And I think it was the people behind us this time. They went, "Oh, where you go?" You know, they heard us talking. "Where are you from?" "Oh, we're from Liverpool, England." He says, "Oh, yeah. I love England. Do you know why? Because there's no effing Aboriginals there." And me and my mate, we looked around the stadium, right? I think it's 60,000. You look it up, I think it might be 80,000. It's like this massive stadium, Melbourne Cricket Ground, the MCG. Everyone was white. Apart from the Indian cricket players, everyone in that stadium was white. And I'm like, okay, not quite sure how Aboriginals are affecting you in any way, shape, or form, but you know. Okay, and living in Melbourne, I hardly saw anyone who was First Nationer. I didn't see many in Sydney, didn't see many in Brisbane even. I saw quite a few in the Northern Territory, but generally speaking, it's not something that Australians have to, um, you know, it's not like every time they leave the house, there's an Aboriginal out there waiting to attack them or something. It's just weird. And I'll tell you another little story before I move on to another subject. There was a guy called John Batman. You can look it up. His name was Batman, but he wasn't like Batman because he wasn't very nice. And he's the guy who founded Melbourne, and he founded Melbourne by trading. You know, like in Manhattan, they got traded for a few beads and things. Yeah, similar sort of thing. So he was dealing with people who didn't speak English, who didn't have any concept of land rights because that wasn't a part of their culture, which is over 60,000 years old. He said, "Oh, I'll give you these beads, and then this land is ours. We can use this land." And they're like, "Okay." Took the beads, and then they were ejected from their land, their ancestral land on which they had lived for thousands of years, which is now Melbourne. Uh, um, John Batman was taken to court for this. He was taken to court by the British, not because he had ripped the Aboriginals off. No. Because he had traded with them. And for the British colonizers of Australia, the Aboriginals didn't exist. For all legal purposes, Aboriginals didn't exist. You couldn't trade land with them because the land was not theirs. It was terras nullius, meaning nobody lived there. So what about all these millions of people who live here already? No, they don't count. They don't count. They don't. I don't know why, but they just don't count. And then I could talk about the whole history of Australia and the treatment of the Aboriginals for so long. Has just been so absolutely grotesque. But we're just to focus on this referendum vote that was unsuccessful at the weekend. There was a video by Adam Hills from the last leg, who's an Aussie, and he was saying it's a bit like you're disabled and you're in a wheelchair and someone says, "I'm going to build a house for you," and you say, "Okay, great. Can I give some advice on what I need?" "No." "But why not?" "Because I'm building it and I don't want to listen to you." "Yeah, but you're able-bodied and you don't have the same concerns as I do, and you don't have the same needs as I do. So if I just give you some advice, I'm not telling you how to build the house, but just, this would be preferable to that. I don't really want a spiral staircase in the middle of my living room. It wouldn't be very helpful for me." And the builder says, "No, I'm not going to listen to you. Sorry." But the arguments that were used against the voice in Australia were really similar to the arguments used for Brexit. It's just a dog whistle, racist politics of numpties who have literally nothing to feel proud about except the colour of their skin. Well done. Well done. You won the life lottery. You were born 3-0 up and think you won a hat trick, as James O'Brien loves to say. Anyway, I just want to say something in defence of Australia before I go on to New Zealand. When I left, one of the big reasons was I just didn't really want to. I didn't want to live in Australia, and yeah, I there were other factors, but the casual racism really got to me. I saw it a lot, and then coming back to the UK in 2012, and the Olympics were on, and it was just fantastic. It was a really great atmosphere. And it really felt, we had a Somalian refugee winning golds for England. He at Britain for Team GB. He had his, he had the Union flag wrapped around his shoulders, and I thought, fantastic. We've wrestled the flag back from the National Front. We've wrestled it back from the BNP. Yes, great. It's okay to feel okay about being British again for the first time, probably ever. I don't know why I said again. And then 4 years later, we voted for Brexit. And from that moment on, Britain, from my point of view, became a lot more like Australia. There was a lot more casual racism. My friends who had never suffered racial abuse ever in their lives were suddenly suffering racial abuse. In fact, people who were not even, from an ethnic minority, people who were from France or Germany or Poland suffered abuse. Okay, when are you leaving? We voted you out. And it was just, it turned horrible. It turned horrible. And this is one of the reasons why I kind of disagree with referendums. I don't think we should be asking people questions on emotive issues in which the racists can maximize their horribleness. And also it divides families, it divides friends, neighbors, co-workers. This is a big problem. And yeah, it's one of the reasons why I think that we should move away from referendums and maybe have a system where we have manifestos, and if you get elected, your political party gets elected, you get to enact your manifesto. You have a mandate. Yay. One of those things that Rishi Sunak doesn't have. A mandate. Remember them? Anyway, mandate. Like when you go on Grindr. Mandate. Okay, forget it. Right, moving on. New Zealand. So, sad story in New Zealand. The Labour Party's out and the Conservative Party are in. And so it was Jacinda Ardern's party. She stepped down as Prime Minister about 6 months ago. And yeah, they didn't do very well in the polls. Didn't do very well in the election, which is sad because I quite like them. And now it's going to go right wing for a little bit. Now, going right wing for a little bit, this has all happened this weekend. Going right wing for a little bit isn't a problem usually, for a few years. But these days, being right wing is associated with being an absolute wing nut, right wing nut. The right is more disgusting than ever before in history, and that's not just in the UK. In the US, it's all over the world. Just have a look at the leader of the opposition in Australia, how they behaved during the run-up to the Voice referendum. For details. But in a bit of good news, it looks like the piss party in Poland is on its way out. So this is the Law and Order Party, or whatever it's called, a right-wing party in Poland that has presided over some really quite offensively draconian rules, especially concerning LGBTQAI plus people. IA, sorry, not AI. God, don't want artificial intelligence in there. That wouldn't be any fun. Uncanny Valley and all that. And it looks like Donald Tusk's party are going to be able to form a coalition of the left. So everyone's quite happy about that because there was some worry that the rest of Europe was moving more towards the right, whereas Britain is most definitely moving more towards the left, especially after 13 years of dysfunctional Tory government. So I'm just going to jump into the chat, and then we're going to just talk a little bit about Israel-Palestine because it's going to be difficult, and I don't want to piss anyone off, and I don't want to upset anyone, and I don't want anyone in the chat to upset anyone either. So let me be very clear: if someone's writing horrible things in the chat, you will be banned from the channel. Okay, so don't. Right, but first of all, hello everyone. Hello to Darren there in the chat. Daily Blase. Good morning. Olympic jokes: a ginger-haired man, a mixed race woman, and a Somali refugee walk into a pub, and everyone wants to buy them a drink. Yeah, exactly. We got plumbed up. I remember my Polish neighbour left the UK after Brexit. They were lovely. I remember they asked me what we had done wrong, and I was ashamed for being British. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same here. Absolutely same here. I felt revulsion. I felt sick, actually. I felt absolutely sick. Lucy says, I remember the day after Brexit, the attitude of people afterwards made me sick to my stomach, but particularly because I was stupid enough to vote for it. Yeah, sorry, Lucy. You got conned. You got conned, but at least you admit you got conned. literally millions of people. So I'm just moving a wire. There's millions of people out there who just cannot admit that it was a big con job. They still think that it was the right thing to do. And they're not angry with the right people. They're angry at people like me for telling the truth. Rather than getting angry at the people who lied to them. It's just hilarious. Well, I say me, not many people know me, but I say James O'Brien. They're angry at James O'Brien for telling the truth. They've noticed Brexi's ganging up in smaller channels. They know they've lost their argument, so looking for quiet places where they can feel big. Well, they could try Twitter. Everyone's left. There was a mass stampede over the weekend to Threads. If you want to follow me on Threads, it is threads.net. They don't have .com, which is really weird. / at Graham David Hughes. So just remember my middle name is David, and then you'll be able to find me on there. I like Threads. I joined straight away, and I was given a blue tick, and James O'Brien followed me, and I was like, "This is way better than Twitter." Never got a blue tick, and wasn't followed by anyone, like particularly well. I had a few people, but not James O'Brien. I've been fighting every day since. Good on you, Luce. Wes says I bought £1,000 brand new Italian sofa from people fleeing Brexit. Paid 90 quid. They took the hit because it was better than Brexit. Oh my God, Jesus, Wes. Good deal for you though. Nick and Dave says Brexiteers more likely to let other anti-Brexit channels slide because they give a counter argument. That's an odd reason to target Marcus. He's so harmless. I don't get it. I don't know why someone's targeting Marcus. If you're talking about Marcus Kett from All Shorts, he's a lovely black. He's very talented as well. My God, he's a master carpenter. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about Israel-Palestine, because obviously things have kicked off, and we all know things have kicked off. And there was a protest over the weekend, and there were some people at the protest with who were celebrating terrorism. I mean, most of them weren't. Make that very clear. And I don't like it. I mean, look, I don't. I don't like it when I see "I stand with Israel" or "I stand with Palestine" written on someone's thing, because this is not a zero-sum game. It's not like a football match, and I feel like the footballification of politics and life has seeped into the Arab-Israeli conflict, which has been rumbling on since 1948. Well, even before 1948, to be honest with you. So, yeah, this has been an entire lifetime in the making, and it's a horrible, horrible situation. Whose side am I on? Peace. That I know that sounds really pithy and shite, and it doesn't really get to the heart of the matter. But I want peace. That's what I want. I don't want the Israelis to win. I don't want Hamas to win. I want the people to win. So I should say, I don't want the Israeli government to win. Benjamin Netanyahu might be the biggest loser in all this, apart from the people who've obviously lost their bloody lives. In that his political career looks like it's over. 9 out of 10 people polled in Israel last week said that they blame Netanyahu, the on and off again prime minister for the last 20 years in Israel. They blame him for this situation and for the lack of security in Israel that allowed this terrorist attack to happen last weekend. And so, I mean, where does it go from here? This is the big question. I think that, and it's horrible to think about. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible to think about. I'm sure people are shouting in the chat here. I think that it's going to end with the end of Gaza. I think that the Israelis are just going to go and steamroll at Gaza and push everyone out of the Rafah, the border point with Egypt, which is closed at the moment. Egypt know what the Israelis are trying to do, and they have closed that. So the Palestinians, all 2 million of them, have kettled into Palestine, into the Gaza Strip at the moment, at the Gazans. This is really all the excuse that Netanyahu needed to do what he's wanted to do for a long time, and that is to annex the Gaza Strip. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I think that the international community is just going to go, oh, what can we do? Oh, how sad. Never mind. And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic that we live in a world in which fighting over which, I'm not religious, so God, fighting over which space wizard you believe in effectively is, my invisible friend's better than yours. I'm sorry if I'm offending people in the chat by saying that, but it really does come down to that. And to see so much suffering going on and so much suffering to come. Well, this is just the beginning of it. The Israelis haven't begun, I don't think, the ground invasion into northern Gaza, but I think they're going to push everyone out of northern Gaza that they can into southern Gaza, and then they're going to push everyone out of southern Gaza into Egypt. I think that's what's going to happen, and that could make start a bigger problems in the area as well. And if you go back to Hamas's motives, why they did this, I mean, because a lot of them are sick F words, but they saw that the Americans were really pushing to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, and they knew that this is going to be their last chance saloon to actually do what they want to do, which is their stated aim of destroying Israel. That's Hamas's stated aim, and I think now the unstated aim of Israel might be to destroy Gaza, or at least drive all of the Palestinians out of Gaza and just take it over, be king of the rubble. And it's horrible. So yeah, I don't stand with the Israeli government. I don't stand with with Hamas. I stand with the Israeli people and with the Palestinian people who've done nothing wrong, who don't deserve this. Do not deserve this. By a quirk of fate, they happen to be born in a certain part of the world from a certain person, and they're thrown into this mess, this absolute mess of mankind's own making. And what I would say though is, I don't have any solutions to what's happening in Israel right now. I don't think anyone watching this probably has any particularly good solutions to the problem, to what's happening. But I'll tell you what's not helping: people on social media spreading lies, people on social media being all footballification about this and saying, no, one side is 100% evil and the other side is 100% good, or vice versa. Or even worse, celebrating the death of civilians of either side. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And one of the big reasons I think why so many people have abandoned Twitter over the last few days is just because people are just sick of it. They're sick of seeing people defending the indefensible. There's no excuse for it, and it's painful. I probably know how you feel as well with this. I just feel absolutely helpless. I just feel absolutely helpless watching this horror show unfold live on television. A horror show that didn't have to happen. Had the international community, and I believe this to the core of my being, had we not been distracted by Iraq and Afghanistan, there would have been a continuation of the push for peace in the Middle East, in Palestine, Israel, and we could have had a two-state solution by now, maybe a peaceful two-state solution. But because the eye of Sauron, if you like, of the international community turned to Iraq and Afghanistan and away from Israel and Palestine, it never happened. And don't forget, Hamas won that election in Gaza in 2006, I think it was, or 2007. And I don't think that would have happened had the peace efforts been continuing and aid efforts into Palestine continued, because you had a situation where the people of Palestine were completely, as we're seeing today, beholden to the Israelis for everything, for their power, for their borders, for what they could bring into the country, for their water supply. And that's not a nice place to be. That's have another country control those things over you. I mean, look how Britain reacted to the fact that they felt like other countries were controlling the shape of their fucking bananas. Sorry, didn't mean to swear. It isn't all over Abraham marrying a Jew, an Arab, and the problem is the hierarchy supposed for the first wife. Something like that. I don't know. I don't really get into it. Christopher Hitchens, a beautiful human being, said many wise things about religion and politics. He did. Naledi, but Naledi. However, he did support the invasion of Iraq. So, yeah, if his goal was to bring peace to the Middle East, that's not the way to go about it. Lucy says, I support the innocent. Me too. And Irene said the Palestinians just Jews that stayed 2,000 years ago and converted to Islam. Mad history. Well, yeah, it is. It is, Irene. I mean, for us on the outside looking in, it's like, what are you fighting over? And it's like, well, we had this in Northern Ireland. Although there was a concerted effort to bring peace in Northern Ireland. If that hadn't happened, there still would be fighting in Northern Ireland. People would still be blowing stuff up in Northern Ireland because it's one of those things where you're always going to have two groups of people that find it difficult to live alongside. So you have to create the circumstances for it to be preferable for them to live alongside each other, however uncomfortable that may be, than for them to be blowing each other up. And that's what we did. Not me personally, but that's what the international community came together and did in Northern Ireland. And America had a big role in that. Now, as soon as you take America out of the equation, and we bitch about America all the time because America makes really bad decisions and it can't do anything domestically because of its stupid political system. So the president invariably, after a few years, gets bored and goes, "Let's go on a daft foreign military adventure. That'll secure my poll ratings for the next election." Didn't work for George W. Bush. George Bush. George H.W. Bush. But it certainly worked for his son. Johnny Copperhead, and the beginning was the word, and the word was really. Thank you very much for the super chat, mate. David Dack, we're all going to start repeating history each time. It'll happen and get worse each time. Iran, maybe Saudi getting involved. If what then? Done better thinking. XRAF basically run the Saudi Air Force. What will they do? Anyway, they were involved in the Yemen thing. So yeah. So essentially, I can't see one of the reasons why Saudi Arabia had sort of stopped supporting Palestine to a large degree was because Iran was really supporting Palestine, and Iran and Saudi Arabia are mortal enemies. So going back again to another division of religion. So this isn't just a division of the Abrahamic religions into Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. No, this is a division of Islam into Sunni Islam and Shia or Shiite Islam. So Iran is Shia and Saudi Arabia is Sunni. It's very hot. It's the desert, and yeah, they've fought for many years and fought these proxy wars, and effectively, some of the wars that we've seen recently, like in Syria, have been proxy wars. The only reason why Assad stayed in power in Syria, even though the odds were very much stacked against him, you had more people fighting against his government, and also you had the international community in general supporting the toppling of al-Assad in Syria. But he was propped up by Iran and he was propped up by Russia. I do think that Russia has got probably some interference going on in here. Russia does like to meddle in other people's affairs in the same way that America likes to meddle in other countries' affairs. And yeah, they're both kind of as bad as each other when it comes to shit like this, unfortunately. But yeah, so I can't see the Saudis really coming in on the side of the Palestinians. And I'll tell you why. I spent a good few months in the Arab Peninsula. I was in Saudi Arabia. I was in Oman for a few weeks. I was in Dubai for a month. I was in Kuwait for 6 weeks. It's a hard place to get around without flying, trust me. And the experience that I had talking to people who were Emirati or Kuwaiti or Saudi was that they didn't think much of Palestinians. Like, they were quite racist they were quite prejudiced, should we say, against Palestinians. They kind of had a hierarchy in their heads of, you know, who were the good Arabs and who were the bad Arabs, and they didn't really have nice things to say about Palestinians. And I noticed that just being there, which was a bit upsetting and a bit kind of like, well, why are you picking on them? But that's the way people felt. It's like, I guess in this country, when you start talking about travelers and white people who, you know, look at these other white people and go, I don't like them. They're beneath me for some reason because they live life differently. How dare they? And you're like, okay, right. I've got hierarchy in my head of, you know, who the good white folk of Britain are and who the bad white folk are. So similar sort of thing. So that's the impression that I got when I was there. And I guess that if there's not much popular support for helping the Palestinian support in countries like Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Oman, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. I mean, even in Egypt, they aren't particularly impressed with the Palestinians. They see it as something that they got involved in, and it cost them the Sinai Peninsula. So there's that. Oh my God, there's so much toxic history that's gone on in this region, and I would like to say before I go, it's all Britain's fault. I'm going to leave now and just leave it at that. Just drop that little bombshell. Yeah, it's all Britain's fault because it kind of is. You can tell because there's straight lines on the map. Anyway, you can see straight lines. You go, oh, the British were there, and it probably didn't end well. It's the same on my street. My hair's too long. In a parallel universe, Rory Stewart is the Tory Foreign Secretary, somebody capable. Yeah, I mean, giving the Israeli government a blank check to do whatever they want, which is what the Tories have done, is incredibly frustrating. Wrong. That's the wrong word to use. It's wrong. It's just morally incorrect. You shouldn't do that. The Labour line has been Israel has a right to defend itself as long as it keeps to international law, and they've always put that in. And sometimes I've seen clips online of Keir Starmer or Emily Thornberry talking about Israel-Palestine and saying exactly that, but they've cut the end off. So it just says, yeah, they can defend them. They've got a right to defend themselves under international, as long as they keep to the rules of international law and the Geneva Convention, which Israel might not be doing, as we can see. Be fair, Britain. Be fair, Graham. Britain wasn't the only European power looking to carve the Ottoman Empire up. Oh, that's true. But I mean, France, because France took over what's now Lebanon, didn't they? And much of Syria. So you're right, yeah. And the French were there as well, the French Foreign Legion. Bloody Balfour, says Derek. I'm sorry, but Saudi and Gulf state regimes are startled by the Arab Spring. All the regimes recognized that a democratic Middle East was a threat. That includes siding with Israel. Oh no, yeah, to be clear, I don't think they're going to side with Israel. No, I don't think they're going to side with Israel at all. I'm saying they're not going to support the Palestinians either. So they're not going to offer any help or support. What would be great right now for people in Palestine is for aid ships to turn up with food, with portable generators, with power, oil, whatever you need to run the generators to allow life to sort of function as kind of like normal. And I know we're talking about large numbers of people here. We're talking about over 2 million people. Actually, it is possible, and then we see this in emergency situations when there's been an earthquake or when there's been a natural disaster, that we can mobilize very, very quickly to make sure that all of those people are fed, that all those people are kept warm at night, that all those people are looked after. But people can't get in to Israel at the moment because into Gaza at the moment because the Israelis are blockading. All the borders with Israel are closed. The border with Egypt is closed, and the sea borders where boats come in are patrolled by the Israeli Navy, and they're not going to allow anyone in. So negotiations need to be done in that respect. And I know that the Americans, Anthony Blinken, is it essentially the foreign secretary in America? He's doing a lot of good work at the moment, trying to get humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. But the UK government are doing bugger all because they're useless. Anyway, look, we could spend all day talking about this, but I've gone over time. And so I'm going to say thank you very much for watching today, Morning Brew. Obviously, this wasn't the happiest or sunniest or most hilarious episode so far for various reasons. And, we're going to dive into this, I'm sure, again, over the coming weeks. And thank you very much for being respectful in the chat. I've not noticed anyone saying anything particularly horrible. If you did, maybe one of my moderators took you out. If so, thank you very much, moderators, for doing that. Have a lovely day, Graham, and all take care. Thank you very much, Daily Blase. And thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. I'll be back. Well, Phil will be back in the morning at 9:30, and I should be back tonight with Super Tansky for the Swear Jar at 8 o'clock. So look out for that. And until then, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.